The Buddha once taught, "Focus on yourself." This teaching is not merely a piece of advice, but a guiding light for those seeking peace amidst the turbulence of life. When we speak of focusing on oneself, it is not to reinforce the ego, but to recognize our true nature, a reality unbound by delusions, ignorance, or endless desires. In the Buddha's teachings, all suffering stems from ignorance, a lack of understanding about the nature of the world and ourselves. People often become entangled in external concerns drawn by superficial values and societal judgments. When the mind constantly chases after these things, we lose the ability to look deeply within, where the answers to all our troubles truly lie. The Buddha, on his path to enlightenment, faced countless temptations and illusions from the external world. Yet by turning inward, transcending delusions, and confronting the essence of his own mind, he discovered the truth. The teaching, "Focus on yourself," is the key for anyone, regardless of their circumstances, to walk the path of liberation. From a practical perspective, focusing on oneself does not mean abandoning the world around us. It is learning to live amidst life's complexities without being dominated by them. When we take the time to observe our own minds, recognize our thoughts, emotions, and actions, we begin to understand the root of all suffering. This focus is not selfishness or isolation, but a way to cultivate wisdom and compassion. The Buddha emphasized, "The wise look within, the foolish look at others' faults." This is not merely a warning, but a reminder that happiness and freedom are never found by attempting to change the external world, but by transforming our inner being. In the modern context, life often bombards us with information, expectations, and pressures. We are easily swept up in meaningless comparisons, judging ourselves against others' standards, forgetting that each person has their own journey. Focusing on oneself, as taught by the Buddha, is a way to return to the present moment and free the mind from these invisible chains. Take a moment to reflect on yourself. The dissatisfaction, suffering, and insecurity you are experiencing, do they truly come from external circumstances? Or are they the result of clinging, discontent, and the relentless cravings of the mind? The Buddha taught that suffering is a natural part of life, but it is our attachment to suffering that keeps us trapped. By focusing on ourselves, we not only identify our suffering, but also see the path to freedom from it. The Buddha's teaching on focusing inward goes beyond merely observing the mind. It requires consistent practice. This might take the form of meditation, where the mind becomes still, allowing for deeper observation. It might involve mindfulness, where every action and thought is performed with full awareness. When we focus on ourselves, we begin to live fully, free from being swept up in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. Practicing this teaching is not always easy. We will encounter obstacles within our own minds, judgment, fear, and even resistance. But remember, the Buddha himself faced similar challenges on his journey to enlightenment. He was not a deity, but a human being who found a way to overcome suffering. This means that we too, with effort and persistence, can achieve the same. The teaching, "Focus on yourself," is not an abstract philosophy, but an invitation. Take time each day to return to yourself, to observe, to understand, and to let go of unnecessary burdens. In that stillness, you will discover that every answer you seek already resides within you. This is the truth the Buddha revealed, the truth of the path to freedom and enlightenment. Reflecting further on the teaching, "Focus on yourself," we see that it is not merely a moral guideline, but also a philosophical and practical roadmap. In the Buddha's teachings, all phenomena in the world are understood through three characteristics: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Focusing on ourselves is the first step to understanding these truths, dismantling delusions, and transcending suffering. Firstly, when we focus on ourselves, we begin to recognize the nature of impermanence. Everything is constantly changing, and nothing remains in a fixed state forever. The body, emotions, thoughts, and even relationships are manifestations of this ceaseless change. However, people often cling to these temporary things, hoping they will bring lasting happiness. When change inevitably occurs, as it always does, we fall into suffering. Focusing on oneself is not about reinforcing attachment, but about clearly seeing the transitory nature of all phenomena and learning to let go. Suffering in life does not always arise from major events. Often it comes from minor dissatisfactions, nameless anxieties, or a sense of emptiness we cannot explain. When we fail to focus inward, we tend to blame external circumstances. But the Buddha taught that true suffering originates within the mind, from delusions, unrealistic expectations, and a lack of understanding of ourselves. Turning inward through self-reflection helps us identify these causes instead of escaping or seeking temporary relief. The philosophy of non-self is one of the Buddha's core teachings. When we focus on ourselves, it is not to strengthen the ego, but to realize that the self we cling to is merely a collection of temporary elements: the body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. There is no unchanging self within these components. Understanding this does not deny our existence, but frees us from attachment to false notions about ourselves. One of the most effective ways to practice this teaching is through meditation. Meditation is not about trying to suppress thoughts or achieve a special state, but is an opportunity to observe the mind with honesty. The Buddha once said, "Be a light unto yourself." Meditation is the light of that lamp, illuminating the true nature of who we are. In the stillness of meditation, we can recognize delusions, emotions, and even unconscious habits. This recognition is the first step toward liberation. However, focusing on oneself does not end with meditation. The Buddha emphasized that mindfulness should be maintained in every activity of daily life. Eating, walking, working, or interacting with others. All these can become opportunities for self-reflection. When we eat mindfully, we realize that food is not merely nourishment, but the culmination of countless supporting factors: rain, sunlight, soil, and human labor. When we walk mindfully, each step becomes an expression of life, and we are deeply aware of our existence in the present moment. Focusing on oneself, when done correctly, is not a journey of isolation or detachment from the world. Instead, it is a path to self-understanding, which in turn leads to understanding others. When we learn to observe our emotions, such as anger, fear, or envy, we begin to see that these feelings also exist in others. This recognition fosters compassion, a boundless empathy for all beings. The Buddha not only taught us to look within, but also showed us that understanding ourselves is the foundation for understanding and loving the world. Perhaps the greatest challenge in practicing this teaching is facing the darker aspects of ourselves. When we focus inward, it is inevitable that we will encounter our weaknesses, mistakes, and fears long buried. Yet the Buddha never claimed that the path to enlightenment is easy. He himself endured years of asceticism and faced despair before realizing that liberation lies not in running away, but in directly confronting reality. Remember, the teaching, focus on yourself, is not an abstract philosophy, but a practice that can be applied in every moment of life. It does not require us to change our circumstances or achieve grand accomplishments. It simply calls for sincerity, patience, and the courage to face ourselves with honesty. The Buddha has shown us the path, but the choice to walk it rests entirely with each individual. Returning to oneself is an act of great strength. It is an affirmation that happiness does not come from the external world, but from a deep awareness of the mind and the nature of reality. In that stillness, you will realize that liberation has always been present, waiting for you to uncover it. Focusing on oneself is not about abandoning or evading responsibility toward the world, but a journey inward to understand the mind and actions with clarity. When we truly understand ourselves, we begin to see the world through a different lens, no longer controlled by prejudices or selfish ambitions. The Buddha emphasized that enlightenment is not a distant state reserved only for saints, but a potential within everyone, achievable through genuine self-reflection. Imagine a lake. When the surface is disturbed by ripples, we cannot see the bottom. All is murky and chaotic. But when the water becomes still, we can see the lake bed clearly, observing every pebble and tiny creature beneath. Our mind is much the same. When caught up in troubles, anxieties, and distractions, we cannot perceive the truth. Yet when we pause and observe in silence, the mind becomes clear, revealing its true nature. An essential aspect of focusing on oneself is the cultivation of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a life skill, a state of awareness that keeps us from being lost in delusions. In each moment, mindfulness enables us to recognize what is happening in our mind and body with clarity. The Buddha taught mindfulness not only in meditation, but also in all daily activities. This means that even when eating, walking, or working, we can practice this focused awareness. For instance, when eating a meal, instead of letting your mind wander to work-related thoughts or other worries, focus entirely on each bite. Feel the texture, savor the flavor, and recognize the interconnectedness of everything: the rain, sunlight, soil, and the farmer's labor that brought the food to your plate. Similarly, when walking, pay attention to each step, the sensation of your feet touching the ground, and how your breath synchronizes with your movements. These seemingly simple actions help you live fully in the present moment, untethered by the past or future. Focusing on oneself in this way transforms mundane moments into profound opportunities for awareness, connecting deeply with life as it unfolds here and now. Another principle the Buddha emphasized is letting go. Letting go does not mean giving up everything, but releasing attachment, the clinging to emotions, thoughts, or expectations. We often trap ourselves in notions like, "I must do this to be happy," or "I need to achieve that to be recognized." However, upon closer observation, we realize that happiness does not depend on these conditions. Instead, it lies in the act of letting go, in accepting reality as it is. A simple analogy can illustrate this. When you hold a stone tightly, your hand grows tired and sore. But when you release it, your hand feels light and free. Our minds are similar. When we cling to unnecessary things, we burden ourselves with suffering. But when we let go, we experience freedom and peace. In the process of focusing on oneself, we must also learn to face ourselves with honesty. This is not easy, as we may uncover aspects of ourselves we have tried to avoid, mistakes, negative emotions, or fears. Yet the Buddha taught not to run from suffering, but to confront it. Suffering is not our enemy, but a teacher, helping us learn and grow. Returning to oneself not only benefits the individual, but also radiates outward to the community. When you understand yourself, you are no longer controlled by negative emotions, allowing you to act with greater compassion toward others. The Buddha taught that a candle does not lose its light by lighting another candle. Similarly, when you become a source of light, your peace and wisdom naturally spread to those around you. Life is full of uncertainties and change. Rather than seeking safety in external conditions, remember the Buddha's insight that true peace can only be found within the mind. When you focus on yourself, you will discover that happiness does not come from changing the world, but from changing the way you perceive it. In doing so, you not only find liberation for yourself, but also contribute to making the world a better place. Take time each day to practice this teaching. Start with small steps, a few minutes of meditation, a few mindful steps, a moment to observe your thoughts. Gradually, you will realize that focusing on yourself is not a selfish act, but the greatest gift you can offer to yourself and the world. In the quietness of this practice, you will see that everything you have been searching for has always been within you, waiting to be recognized and awakened. The path of focusing on oneself is a journey without end, a return to the original nature of the mind and life itself. Along this journey, you will come to understand that it is not circumstances or other people causing your suffering, but your perceptions and reactions to what happens around you. The Buddha once said, "Victory over 1,000 battles is not as great as the victory over oneself. That is the ultimate victory." This profound teaching reminds us that the real battle is not external, but lies in overcoming our weaknesses, illusions, and self-imposed limitations. Each time you recognize and overcome a bad habit, an attachment, or a fear, you take one step closer to enlightenment. In reality, focusing on yourself is not always easy. There will be days when you feel stuck or even like you're moving backward. At times, facing the uncomfortable aspects of yourself, the parts you have long avoided, can feel discouraging. But remember, just as a precious gem must be polished to shine brightly, your mind needs to endure challenges to attain clarity. Look at the life of the Buddha as a living testament to perseverance on the path to enlightenment. His liberation was not instant. He endured years of asceticism, confronted inner conflicts, and faced failures before realizing that the middle way, neither indulgence nor extreme austerity, was the key to enlightenment. This teaches us that balance is essential in focusing on oneself. Balance does not mean eliminating all negative emotions or thoughts, but learning to accept them without letting them control you. When you feel anger, instead of trying to push it away, observe it. When you feel sadness, instead of drowning in it, explore its origins. The Buddha taught that when you truly understand your emotions, they lose their power over you, like a fire that dies out when it is no longer fed with fuel. By cultivating this awareness, you move closer to a life of peace, clarity, and inner freedom, a life in which every moment becomes an opportunity for growth and understanding. This practice requires a patient mind and compassion for yourself. Don't be overly harsh or judgmental when you stumble. View setbacks as a natural part of the journey, much like how a child learns to walk by falling many times. The Buddha did not teach us to become perfect instantly, but emphasized that small daily progress is what truly matters. Remember, focusing on yourself does not mean isolating yourself or rejecting connections with others. In fact, as you understand and love yourself more, it becomes easier to love and understand others. When compassion for yourself grows, it naturally extends to those around you. You will recognize that, like you, everyone is struggling with their fears, dreams, and challenges. This realization will help you approach others with empathy and kindness. In the context of modern life, it often feels as though there is no time to focus on ourselves. Work, family responsibilities, and societal pressures can make it easy to neglect our inner needs. However, even a few minutes a day spent in meditation or mindfulness can begin to transform how you live. You don't need to overhaul your entire life immediately. Simply changing how you view yourself and the world can bring clarity and peace. One simple yet effective practice is to start and end each day with a moment of stillness. Spend a few minutes in the morning sitting quietly, observing your breath, and setting an intention for the day. Today, I will live with mindfulness. In the evening, take some time to reflect. What did I learn about myself today? Did I live in alignment with my intention? These small moments help you maintain focus on yourself without feeling overwhelmed. Finally, remember that focusing on yourself is not a goal to achieve, but a journey to live. Each day is a new opportunity to understand yourself better, to let go of what no longer serves you, and to live authentically. The Buddha has shown us the path, but it is you who must walk it. With every step, you move closer to liberation from suffering and discover true peace within your own soul. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Your support and companionship are a tremendous source of motivation for us to continue delivering valuable and meaningful content. If you enjoyed the insights shared in this video, Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any new updates. Each subscription and your support contribute to the growth of our community. Wishing you abundant health, peace, and happiness on every journey of life. See you in the next video.